welcome to the Essential Scares podcast, the only show that dares to ask the question, is it essential? I am your host, Corbin, and as always, with me today is Alan.
Good evening.
And Bobby.
Goodbye.
Yeah, that's the show. Nice. Nice, let's wrap it, boys.
Today is our 100th episode, and we have got a little bit of a different show for you today. We will not be reviewing a new movie. We will not be deciding if a new movie is essential, but instead what we're going to do is look back over the first 99 episodes and decide, were we right? Were we wrong? Do we want to change any of our scores? Do we want to change any of our essentialities? How do we feel given the time that has passed about our previous scores? We're going to give ourselves this one chance to edit our scores. And after this, they'll be set in stone for at least another 100 episodes. And then we'll see where we're at. Up until now, with 99 episodes, we have reviewed 102 items across games, movies, and TV shows. But before we get into it, Bobby has a spoiler warning.
I do. This will serve as your first, one and only spoiler warning for the hit podcast, Essential Scares Podcast. If you do not want the entirety of our podcast, the Essential Scares Podcast, spoiled for you, please skip to the time code and our show notes or description. It's going to be the end of the podcast for this episode, baby. For our essential spoiler-free discussion, there isn't one. To all the listeners, whether it's day 1, day 100, or hopefully day 1000, thank you so much for listening and for giving 3 great buds a reason to bullshit together on a weekly basis. And to my boys, thank you for being great friends through ups and downs. Can't wait to see what the next 100 and some change week leads to us. LOL cum joke. Alan.
All right, so it's not often mentioned, but in my day-to-day life, I am a financial analyst. So I live, eat, sleep, breathe numbers. So I got some stats that we're going to just kind of gloss over here real quick to give an overview of the past 99 episodes and kind of where things have been. As a whole, between the 3 of us, for all the movies we've covered, our average as a show is a 3.13 out of 5. So we're ranking movies somewhere slightly above average on average across the 3 of us. Now, having a score that is that kind of tight, it weighs out when you see our actual individual averages. So I average at 3.01. Bobby averages at a 3.36 because he's just too nice. And Corbin averages at a 3.2 across all of our episodes. I've said yes. Sorry, go ahead.
I love that because it means that if we were to round the averages, Bobby scores at a higher score than either myself or Alan with a 3 versus a 3.5.
Which is incredibly funny considering the essentiality of the scores. Alan, please continue.
Yeah. Essentiality-wise, this is one that I think is kind of interesting because it shows we're all pretty much on the same wavelength. I've said yes 41 times. Bobby has said yes 40 times. Corbin has said yes 45 times. So it's interesting seeing just how close we are in agreement there. There's some amount of, ups and downs, and obviously we're going to go through it between the individual movies where we kind of rank and don't rank. And we'll also see all of this post all of our changes here to get an idea of how things have shifted.
You see, Alan, you say that, but I say that I am the kindest gatekeeper known to man, and Corbin is what you would call mean, but also he just lets anybody through.
This is true. Wrapping things up, we've got our Hall of Fame. These are the movies that get the full 15 out of 15, and all 3 of us said, yes, these movies are essential. And they go in this order. Get Out, Nope, The Rocky Horror Picture Show, the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 1974, Scream, American Psycho, Candyman, The Exorcist, The Shining, and Dr. Sleep is our most recent Hall of Fame entry, we haven't had one of these in a while because Dr. Sleep was what, 20 something episodes ago at this point? Like, it's been a while since we actually had one. That
Dr. Sleep was episode 75, so exactly 25 episodes ago. We
25 episodes ago.
We reviewed that episode. It was the first episode we recorded in December. It's currently halfway through June, so this is the longest we have went. The longest we have went without a Hall of Fame episode. And do you think maybe focusing on franchises may have done that? Have we picked a few franchises without Hall of Fame entries? We did do Nightmare on Elm Street, which I think probably has a Hall of Fame in it, but it was the first entry, which we didn't have to do this year because we'd already done it.
Maybe we have to change the formatting of the show again a little bit. Maybe. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, that wraps up statistic time with Alan.
Yeah.
We'll revisit some of these as we revisit scores.
Yeah. If you like statistics time with Alan, let us know, and we can bring that into the show a little bit more.
Yeah, I can always talk numbers. I literally get paid money to do it. So
I would love a mid-episode nap. That's all I'm saying.
Just every week, it's like, oh man, I can zone out for about 6 minutes.
Oh, thank Christ! Listen, it's Diablo time for about 6 minutes.
All you hear is just clicking in the background for like a good 5 minutes straight.
Oh my
It doesn't show up on the Riverside.
Yeah.
It's all good.
So
it does show up on the page on the thing though. A lot of D's and F's. All right, go ahead.
We are now beginning. We're going to go through all 99 episodes, 102 reviews, and we're just going to, adjust our scores and essentiality in the order that we originally rated them. So from our first episode to today, some of these movies may receive actual conversation. Some of them we'll probably just pass right over, especially the more recent episodes, because, they're fresh in our mind and, like, I would say less likely to have adjustment. But
I'd agree with that.
With that said, gentlemen, 99 episodes ago, 2 years ago, we reviewed The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, a 2021 movie. It was brand new at the time. Our scores were as thus: Alan with a 2, Bobby with a 2.5, and myself with a 2.5. And we all said it was not essential. Does anybody want to propose any changes?
This movie sucked ass. I just want to be there for that. This movie was fucking stupid. I remember the bit from this episode was like, the witch makes a fucking thing, and then the witch sacrifices the souls. ? Profit.
Yep.
Like, I just want to like sit here for a second because again, we're gonna run out of steam very quickly on this 100 episode spectacular, and just say that this was a hell of a movie to start. Shout out to old host Grant, R.I.P. to a real one.
Just pour one out for my homie.
He liked this movie. He was wrong as our scores and essentiality go. I actually think I do want to drop this a little bit to a 2. I think Alan might have been right on this, considering the other Conjuring movies that we did that I scored around a 2.5. I think this is probably the worst Conjuring movie. And I may have to go back to let me see, what other Conjuring movies did we do, because I want to make sure that I gave them correct. I want correct here. The Conjuring. Actually, I'm going to give this a 1.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I'm gonna drop it down.
Bobby's
to
putting
1.
his movies in context, which is
honestly, if we were gonna do it, this is the time to do it.
I'm gonna keep it at a no, but I'm gonna drop it down to a 1. This movie sucked ass, and I don't like the Conjuring movies as is, so I think this is the place to put it. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to go down to a 1.5 because I gave the original Conjuring a 2, and I think that's wrong. I can't say these two movies are the same. So by merit alone, I have to drop down a half point because I actually might have to bump Conjuring slightly.
I'm willing to bump Conjuring as well, but like putting this at a 1.
That's episode 50. We're only on episode 1.
We got 49 extra episodes. We got to go here. Here's the thing, right? That being said, The Conjuring, the devil made me do it. You've forgotten about it. We did, and it was our first episode. So say what you will. This movie, it's dog shit. And there's very little happening. And I remember this movie coming out. It was meant to be a court procedural, and they showed none of the court procedural.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a waste of time. This movie's a waste of time. Yeah.
Where are you at, Corbin?
Me? So so I gave this a 2.5, right? And it was our very first movie, and unlike Bobby, I don't have any wackadoodle nonsense that I have with my scoring, right? A 2.5 is average. It's just right in the middle. So I think that it was going to be, with the first movie, it's a little tough, right? Because you're still figuring out how you actually like feel about things, how you rate things. And long-time listeners may remember that we had a different show that we did before this, and I rated, we rated movies on that as well, but wasn't quite the same. And I think like I'm definitely still going to be the highest score on this, but I will drop the half the point to 2, because I don't think that this is an average movie, but I don't think it's like a 1.5. I would disagree with that. But I also gave The Conjuring, the first one, the highest score, like by double. So
yeah, I was gonna say, you gave it a 4. So
yeah,
not 49. Skip to an hour if you want an hour deep into this podcast if you're interested.
I'm assuming you're all going to say
the essential.
No.
I stand by the no. Yeah, I think we all stand by the no. That's
honestly, I think it might be a yes.
Oh my god! Don't even. We'll waste the whole show's runtime on the very first episode.
We cannot start like this, Bobby. No.
So,
okay. Yeah, obviously it's a no. Obviously it's a no.
All right. So next up, episode 2, we reviewed the original 1992 Candyman.
Oh my god!
This was our second episode ever, and our first Hall of Fame entry. Right? If anybody were to adjust their scores at this point, we would be knocking a movie out of the Hall of Fame. I feel like I could speak for everybody and say there's just no chance of that happening.
There's no shot. No, absolutely not.
It's fucking Candyman. It's so good, right? Like,
yeah.
So we're gonna, Alan, feel free to go for it. We're gonna move on. Episode 3.
I can do data management on this
episode 3. We reviewed the original Hellraiser, a franchise that took us 2 years almost to come back to.
Okay,
now
hear me out.
Our original scores, were Alan with a 2.5, and then Bobby and I both with 4s. But we did all say yes. So I think, based on the last 99 episodes, Bobby and Alan have a little bit of beef here that needs to be resolved.
I honestly feel, now that I've watched this movie this time and then again like 2 more times since, this movie actually might be a 5. Like, it's like in all of its content, it's so fucking cool. It's like, it's a horror movie, it's a gore movie, it's a sex movie, it's a romance movie, and somehow all of those things like meld together, and like it's a noir, like there's a mystery, and like the Cenobites aren't even the villains in it, they're just like an interesting thing that happens in this movie. There's so much happening here that, like, I think there's a reason why Pinhead and why the Cenobites become such an iconic horror movie thing, and I think it's because of this movie and because of Hellraiser 2, which we haven't reviewed yet. We will soon. And I think it's worthwhile to say that I think this movie actually is a 5, and I think you guys are wrong and stupid if this doesn't go in the Hall of Fame.
So Bobby's bumping to a 5, and by his also thing, he's saying yes on essentiality.
Oh yeah, of course. I'm not going to go against my favorite, like one of my favorite horror franchises of all time. Like,
I'm gonna stick with the yes, right? I think this is an easy yes for me, and it's funny because I have one note up as well. I take notes for every single movie that we watch, and I have them all separated out, so I'm pulling my thoughts up, right?
Oh, he's pulling his fucking notes out,
so I can kind of see, like, what did I think of then? Because I'm looking back in my memory. Well, what do I think of that movie in retrospect? And then what did I think then? And I have a note. My very last note of Hellraiser, is unsure if essential, need to think on it. And that's such an episode 3 note, right? Because we hadn't really locked in exactly what it meant, right? Yet to be essential. And like looking at that note now is like so silly because it's like, how could Hellraiser possibly be a no?
Yeah.
um,
Hellraiser, man.
and I also gave it a 4. And I think like I'll say, I think in the beginning I was a little bit cagier with 5s, right? I wanted to be a little bit more objective, and I still try to have like proper scoring. But I did give Candyman the 5, and I think a piece of me was like, I couldn't give 2 5s in a row. I don't want to be that guy that's just like
I feel
handing
that
out
entirely.
5s. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even
Yeah.
though Candyman and Hellraiser back to back is like, I'm sorry, but it was 2 5s back to back.
Yes! Yes! Alan, don't you fuck me on this. Don't you dare fuck me on this.
So wouldn't fucking you on this be very like Hellraiser appropriate
Yes,
in a
the
way?
pain and
Just
pleasure,
the pleasure
yes.
and the pain,
You
yeah.
know? And I do like inflicting pain upon you, but
Don't
you know what
you
I like
fucking-
more? I like telling you that you were right, and this is, I think, a good example. I think this is a good this is a good example of early Alan didn't know what he was talking about and kind of just was flying by the seat of his pants a little bit. Because of course it is. It's Hellraiser. It's iconic in every way that we think of for a horror movie villain, and also just in general, like you can't deny how important they are
It's gonna
to
spike
horror.
so hard.
Period. Absolutely. This is future Alan's problem.
Bobby can stop
just-
now. He's gotten all the dopamine he needs from this whole episode.
That's very
It's-
true.
It is quite literally all downhill from here.
But yeah. So
Yeah,
I'm with you
that
guys.
is-
This is very much so a
Such a waste of good suffering.
Yeah, it's great.
That is kind of a
Like,
huge like story of this episode, though. Also, that I didn't mention in the beginning is that like Alan before these 100 episodes was a
novice.
very casual horror fan, very much a novice. He'd seen, I would say, I don't know, maybe 20 horror movies ever before that, and now
that's probably accurate.
we're past 100, right?
Well, and all the 33 days stuff that we did,
yes.
that's another 15 a year at least that I watched.
Yeah.
And then I've just
Plus
watched stuff
we
in my
did the,
own time. like
12 Days of Christmas the one time. So
Yep.
you're probably well up to
Did do that.
150, right? And in the last 2 years, and before that, 20, 30. And
Yeah,
so
maybe.
Alan's like horror vocabulary has expanded exponentially.
Our failed franchise of franchise dissection.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
The
Franchise
failed
dissection.
franchise
Yeah.
dissection. Yeah.
So
Okay.
we have our first major winner of episode 100, Hellraiser, entering the Hall of Fame. I think well deserved.
Yeah.
Well deserved.
I
And not
did
just
come.
for the essentiality, but yeah, well, of course. Just an amazing movie.
Mhm.
Our next movie was episode 4. An interesting decision. I think that we wouldn't have made today, right? To cover Exorcist
no
3
way.
first. But
No, yeah.
we were still kind of, I mentioned earlier, we were coming off of doing our other show where we had somewhat recently covered Exorcist 1. And I think as a group, we just didn't want to do it again, even though for this show, it would have been new content. And so we...
So
Exorcist
just so
Legion.
everybody knows, old show really quickly, because we've mentioned it a couple times already. We did an old show that was essentially Corbin's podcast
Mhm.
that he did with 2 other guys. One of them was old
One of
host
them was
Grant.
you.
One of them was old host Grant, and then
Yep.
eventually during the times we don't talk about anymore, COVID-19.
Yeah, true.
The other guy left, and Corbin was like, "Hey, Bobby, you're funny. You want to be a guest on a podcast?" And I went there. He's like, "Hey, by the way, this is an audition to be the new host." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So then we did that, and then me and Corbin were like, we both love horror movies, and then we bullied the other guy into it being a horror movie podcast. And then we were like, "Hey, by the way, we should do a horror movie podcast." Then we edit, and then Alan started being a guest frequently on that other podcast, and then we did this podcast. And then we kicked Grant off. We love him. R.I.P. Exorcist 3, by the way, was one of my choices of movies.
Yeah, it was.
I
Okay.
love this movie so much. Every time I watch this movie, I'm just like, oh.
Our scores, though, Bobby, you had the highest score on this, a 4.5.
Yeah,
I had a 3.5, and Alan had a 4.
I'm sticking.
Bobby,
with my
you're
4.
sticking. Bobby, you're sticking with it as well.
While I'd love to give this movie a 5, just like because of like the amount of just like like every actor in this movie chews up the scenery, and it's just a fun fucking movie. Like, there's just I don't know, man. I don't want to give this movie a 5. People, it's again, it's the same reason why I said it's like it's a yes for me, because it's like, once you hear somebody likes horror movies, this is the first horror movie I will ever suggest to anybody ever. It's like, it's still a yes for me for that, because it's like the best horror movie you haven't watched. Like, but like, is it perfect? Of course not. Like, I don't know. Like there's some weird issues with it that I can't think of off the top of my head. And while my heart and soul is screaming 5, I know it isn't. Like,
Yeah, I feel that. I mean, I had the lowest score, but I really like this movie. I watched it twice for the show, right? I watched the theatrical cut, which is the official score in the sheet, is for the theatrical cut.
Yeah,
and then
Really?
I also watched the director's cut.
I only watched the director's cut.
See, so there you go.
the director's cut is
the
much
Legion
more
cut, right?
ambiguous. Yeah.
It is, and I think it's the better movie. And I think that the theatrical cut has a lot of like ups and downs, but the highs are so high, but there are issues, and I am gonna stick with my score 3.5 for the theatrical cut. But I think I'd give the director's cut a 4. And that's not, that's not on the sheet. We didn't like, that was kind of a weird episode because we had the 4 of us on there, right? The 3 of us plus Grant. We didn't actually all watch this.
And
watch
Grant
the same
only
movie.
watched the director's cut. Yeah.
Right.
I watched the director's cut as well, because I had to rent the movie from Amazon.
Yeah. And
No, you didn't.
yeah.
I remember specifically I had to. I don't remember why.
Okay.
I probably just couldn't.
Yeah.
I don't know. It doesn't matter. But so
Yeah.
it's kind of a weird episode, right, in our history, because there's 2 definitively different versions of the movie.
Yeah.
And the episode was like, there were points in the episode where we were going back and forth on discussion where people were talking about a different cut of the movie. And we've never made that that mistake again. But also, like, we haven't covered anything with 2 very different cuts since then.
Yeah.
But with that said, I'll also stick with the yes. I remember my finishing line of the Exorcist 3 Legion episode was that the Exorcist 3 was a definitive sequel, an essential sequel, I said. Because it just follows through on the first one so well and while being its own movie. And so, I mean, I stand by that. I think it is a great sequel because it's like, does everything it needs to as a sequel without being like a number 2,
Yeah,
So
no, for sure.
I stay with yes.
To repeat myself from the previous bit, I was wrong. This is absolutely an essential movie.
Thank
It's
God.
not even close. This is again Alan doesn't know what he's talking about type moment. I have seen so many poor attempts at sequels to films between episode 3 and 99. To not call this essential on its merits alone as a sequel is a farce. So let's go ahead and just correct that.
It's such a good movie, right? Like,
It's not even just that it's a great sequel. It is also that it is a phenomenal film. Like, it's probably the best horror movie you've never seen. Like, as an actual filmed experience movie, in like all of what that entails.
well, and
So
the
good.
problem with that is the movie we haven't actually watched for the podcast, The Exorcist 2, right? Like, is so bad. It's the reason why no one's seen this movie, which is just so fucking good.
that's
Legion
true.
is so good. Oh,
Yeah.
thank God.
Yeah,
I'm ready for it.
Here we go.
I'm ready for it.
So for episode 5, we saw our second new movie of the show, The Forever Purge. And Bobby and I saw this in the theater, and I remember it was a memorable theater experience. But Alan gave this.
Did we see this all together?
You didn't. It was me.
I don't think it was there. Yeah,
okay.
Bobby
So
with
we
Jill, I think the 3 of us.
we lose Grant. Grant steps.
This was
down
his
during
last
Fear
episode.
Street. Yeah, this was his last episode. Yeah.
So Alan, you gave this a 2 out of 5. Bobby 1.5, myself a 2, with a no, yes, no, respectively.
So we've talked about this a lot.
This is Bobby's infamous yes. Yeah,
So we're gonna start with. I remember during the time saying that this might be a yes if this ends up being a thing, because this came out this came out in a post January 6th world. I'm like, at any time, the Republicans can just get fucking weird about it. And I'm sorry, this isn't a political show, but I'm a political person, so fucking deal with it. I'm gonna say no. Nobody did anything, and we're fine with it. But I will say that this is also a time before the Bobby 1.5.
Yeah, that's true.
And I'm actually going to drop this down to a 1.
Okay.
But a funny
checks
one.
out.
But a funny one. Like
Okay.
it was funny, and I remember thinking this movie was just like weirdly racist, but like
totally
trying
is.
its hardest not to be. Yeah, like it's like, yeah, I just want like they make like the white people like, I don't hate you, I just want you to be by your. It's like a pro segregation movie, if I remember correctly. Like, so it's
funny.
like I hate that in so many ways, but also this movie's pretty fucking funny.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a 1.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm sticking. I think I hit the nail on the head here. 2, no. Yep. I'm very good with that.
Yep. I totally agree. 2, no. Sticking with it. Just below average. Not a bad movie. Just not like nothing stand out. It's just fine.
Yeah.
Next up for episode 6, we had a double. So this was when we went on a little streak here. We had a friend of the show, Ben, on for a few episodes in a row. We were still kind of figuring out the cadence a little bit. And we had decided that we wanted to cover games again, partially because Resident Evil Village was coming out, and we thought, why would we cover Resident Evil Village without covering Resident Evil 7? Which is a funny decision to make, because as you've seen, we've covered several sequels to this point without covering the prequels. And then also, the previous show that we've now mentioned a few times, we covered games. It was that show was always a split show, one game, one movie. And so we were like, well, we've done it before, we'll do it again. We'll cover Resident Evil 7 and the brand new Fierce Street 1994 on the same episode. So we'll just go one item at a time here. With Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, the first game of a short list that we covered for the show, Alan gave this a 2.5. Bobby and myself with 4s. Alan with a no. Bobby and myself with a yes. And keep in mind, again, this is for a game, Resident Evil 7. But everything else stands by, and I'll be honest, I stick with the yes for sure.
Yeah.
I feel like just thinking about the game, this one's tough because games are long, and when I think about the game, I mostly think about the front half of the game, which is probably like a 5. But the game does get like totally ridiculous in the back half.
Yeah. Yeah,
so it overstays its welcome a fair bit.
I think the 4 is probably accurate as a whole. So I'm gonna stand my score 4 and a yes.
Okay. I think I agree. I remember really liking Resident Evil 7, and I think that Resident Evil Village will probably actually get a drop in a point or a 1.5 for me now that I'm looking at it. Just because like this game rather, like, it held me. You can go check my Twitch for clips and other things.
Yeah, that's true.
Maybe this is but yeah, I think it remains a yes for the reasons I said it did. It did bring back Resident Evil in a big way. Mm-hmm. And we played in the old show. We did play a bunch of old Resident Evil games that did not. And Resident Evil has a special place in my heart.
Yeah, there's a reason why we shockingly cover every Resident Evil entry that comes out.
Yeah.
Oh, soon.
Yeah, despite the fact that we're gonna like absolutely eviscerate.
Yeah, it doesn't even matter.
It's a special kind of shot in front of
you. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna say 4 yes. Alan's keeping the 2.5, apparently.
I'm keeping the 2.5. I think this game is a pretty average game. For me, it definitely overstays its welcome. However, I am revising to a yes. And not necessarily... I'm going to go a little more widespread. This is a huge game for Capcom, not just Resident Evil. If you don't remember, Capcom was in the dumps for like 10 years, and then this came out, and Monster Hunter came out, and
basically since Resident Evil 5, which was that 2007, 2008. Yeah.
They had a good 10-year gap there where it was pretty rough for Capcom, just in
was
general.
It really?
They just didn't really. Yes. No, you don't remember now because they've been going wild with good shit in the past.
I don't remember
10 years
because
almost.
I always loved them because I played Monster Hunter like when it was a PSP/DS exclusive. So
they had a great run also, like, for us, like, the timing of Capcom not being very good kind of came at the perfect time of where at least I wasn't paying as much attention to games because of like college and like, you know, early adulthood and whatever. And so like by the time I was focusing on games again, it's like the Capcom Renaissance basically. It's like, oh, okay.
And we're still in the middle of it, which is great.
Yeah.
Like they're just so that to me, I think. Yes, because it reinvented Resident Evil in a way that's interesting, and it also just gave Capcom another lease on life again. So,
Nice.
yes, I think it has to be essential.
Okay. So that
What
same
a
episode,
good collection of movies up next.
I know, that same episode we covered the Fear Street 1994, the first of the Fear Street saga. This was, for anybody that may have forgotten, 2 years ago, Netflix released week to week to week a trilogy of movies, which, what an amazing concept. I can't believe it's been 2 years and we haven't gotten more Fear Street movies, by the way.
Should have done it.
How has that happened? It should have been an annual franchise, and here we are.
Especially considering,
with nothing.
like, think of how much good horror we've had since we started this show.
Yep.
Like, seriously.
And all of the Fear Street movies were so good.
I know.
And that's why I'm going to have to say straight up, I'm going to keep my score of a 4 on Fear Street 94 the same,
Okay.
but actually say it's a no.
Yeah. So
but,
just
like-
as a quick, right? So yeah, Alan had a 4, Bobby had a 4, I had a 3.5, and at the time we all said yes. Bobby,
I don't want to
continue.
agree with you, but I feel like we have. I just think you're right,
Like,
and I hate that.
again, the bread cutter kill,
Amazing.
like, iconic. It makes my heart hurt to this day. Like, I feel like it feels so this movie is so fucked up and so good, and they kill teenagers, and like they don't skimp on anything in this entire trilogy, but like they had an annual thing and they did nothing with it, and it's just like, fuck, man. Right? And now we've got, again, I'm not going to time this episode out. We have some things going on during the time of this episode that's going to delay any movies even farther. It's a writer's strike. But like, so like, even if this was something that's like under the radar, we know it's not happening, but we can pretend like it could, like, it's even farther away now. Like, so it's like, man, god damn, so good. It makes me want to watch Fear Street right now, but it's like nothing came from it. Like,
so you're gonna say no? You're gonna change it?
I have to.
Okay.
I can't think of something that like this movie gives like it, there's iconic kills in movies that we've said no to before. Like,
That's true. That is true.
the
And I mean, I know for me, I often lament, like, well, what does this do? What has this done for horror? I'm sticking at a 4 as well. I think this movie absolutely earned its 4. I'm happy with that personally. But it's like having the power of retrospection.
That's the whole point of today.
I think I have to agree with Bobby and say no, because at the end of the day, I don't think about Fear Street like ever when I'm thinking about horror. There wasn't anything more done with it. You could even make the argument that like Stranger Things effectively is the horror franchise people think of when they think of Netflix. They're going to think of that before they think of Fear Street. As much as Fear Street is a better horror, like actual horror franchise, it doesn't matter. That's not the one that has the hearts and eyes and minds of other people. It just doesn't. It doesn't have that cachet. So I'm gonna have to bump it to a no.
Okay.
That hurts.
it's a good movie.
My score, I had a 3.5. And I'm also gonna stick with my score, 3.5. I remember not being as enthralled with the movie as you guys were, and I think that stands. It's really good for what it is, which is like a mid-teen horror movie, kind of like a great little introduction to the scarier parts, the gorier parts of horror, without going too far. And honestly,
Except for one time.
right, yeah.
Except for once.
Well, I mean, if you're just gonna
That
go
bread-
for it, right? You just go for
that
it once, and
That
they
cutter
did.
scene is like
so good.
fucking heart wrenching. Just no, and like it's like
It's tough because like it has been 2 years and it hasn't been anything else, and it makes it. I remember like social media at the time was on fire over these movies. It was an insane month for Fear Street, and looking back on it, it makes it feel like a flash in the pan, right? Because there wasn't more, and I'll say that while Bobby is correct that we have said no to other movies with iconic kills, we've also said yes to movies that we believe should be, even if not remembered appropriately. And I'm going to hold my yes because I think that its status as a great middle ground between child horror and adult horror stands, even though it isn't remembered. It's a movie that should and could still be used to bridge that gap. And you, as the horror fan, know of the movie and can utilize it appropriately, even though it wasn't remembered as it should have been.
I'm going to stick with my no, but I do agree with you. It is probably the best introductory horror movie. Yeah.
So
78.
the next episode 7, we also did a double. This time, not a game. Episode 7, not a game and a movie, but instead a short TV show and a movie, because it was 2 Resident Evil releases in a row, and we were not going to let it go without seeing that Resident Evil TV show. This episode we covered Fear Street 1978 and Resident Evil Infinite Darkness. So starting with Fear Street 78, this was Alan gave this a 3, Bobby a 3.5, and myself a 3.5. And with Alan and Bobby with yeses and myself with a no. So I would love to go to Bobby next, and the reason is because Bobby famously, gave all 3 of these movies a yes, because he said if the first one is a yes, they must all be yes, because they are all one big movie. Bobby, now that you have adjusted the first movie down to a no, how do you feel about your second yes?
Geez, I wonder. I'm going to keep the score to 3.5. It's not as good, but still very good. And I'm going to go ahead and just say, nah, yeah. And guess what? Guess what 1666 is going to get? I wonder.
Oh, Alan?
Same score, no.
Yep.
And I think this one, I think I should have caught this one as a no, contemporary to the time, because like I think back on it and like it's a good middle bit of the story, but like what I remember my big complaint with this one is they didn't kill kids. I specifically remember that
on screen.
because I was mad about it.
Yeah. Even though it's one of the most graphic killing kids movies that we've watched.
But you don't see anything.
But
also, go watch Halloween, okay?
but also I want to like stick on this for a second, right? Because this was at a time where before we were doing franchises, I was like, well, if one movie in a franchise is essential, all of them have to be, right? It's an essential franchise. They all have the guy in them. They all have like a
Can't wait till we get to our nightmare episodes.
Yeah, they all, right. And in hindsight, I'm like, dude, I hate half of the Hellraiser movies, and it's like my favorite horror franchise of all time. I hate 80% of all of the Hellraiser movies. What the fuck am I doing saying all of them are yeses? So I get it entirely. But this is still one of the most visceral killing kids movies of all time. Like, so many children die and so much gore is shown of killing kids.
Yep. Yeah, so I had a 3.5 and a no, and I am going to that was the same score as what I gave the first movie. And I feel like, obviously, the implication there is I thought it was as good as the first one. And I remember not liking the first one quite as much. But I think that I'm gonna stand actually at the 3.5. I remember liking this movie quite a lot. It's kind of a really great riff on Friday the 13th in all the ways that you want it to be. So I'm gonna keep the score. I am gonna hold my no. I mean, it's definitely not essential. But I guess if you saw the first one, 94, you're probably just gonna go ahead and keep watching them, right? But this one is its own. It is a no. Next up, we had Resident Evil Infinite Darkness. Infinite Darkness was a 4-episode miniseries on Netflix CGI show that
Justice for Berdan Sam.
You've hopefully all forgotten about. It was famously a 4-episode movie. It was just a movie that was broken up into 4 parts. Why they did that, I do not know.
It was a 90-minute movie broken up into 4 episodes.
Yeah. So our scores, these are our lowest scores that we had ever given up to this point. Alan and Bobby with half a point, and myself with a 1. At the time, I had felt like giving less than 1 must be extraordinarily meaningful. I really felt that way, and honestly, I still do. And I'm just gonna kick this off. We all said no. I'm gonna kick it off and say that yeah, the 1 stands. It's not less than a 1. It's still just a 1. Like it's not.
Really?
It's not so atrocious to be less than a 1. I
I
remember one of my strongest points was that the movie isn't so bad to be down to a 0, and the zombies in the White House was worth half a point alone. And honestly, I hold.
forgot about the zombies in the White House entirely.
That's the only part of it I remember.
I'm gonna go ahead and say that I remember a lot about this episode, and it's enough for me to say that this is this actually put another movie into context, and there will be a risen score at some point during this podcast.
I actually just thought that myself.
of a very low scored episode. This is one of the worst things we've ever reviewed on this podcast, and I'm willing to actually to drop this down to a full ass 0. Like it is it's terrible. It's very bad. You should never, under any circumstances, watch this 4-part miniseries. There's another series that's also going to get dropped to a 0. It's also Resident Evil. You'll guess it when we get there.
I love that.
Oh boy, Alan?
I'm sticking with my guns. Half no.
Okay.
I don't need to elaborate.
Fair. So then, episode 8, we covered Fear Street 1666, a movie that I will always love for the hilarious title, despite the historical inaccuracies it immediately presents. Now, this was not a double episode because we reviewed this movie and then we talked about the trilogy as a whole. Obviously, that part, we won't worry about too much, but the scores for this movie were a 3 from Alan, a 4 from Bobby, and a 3 from me, with a no, yes, no. Bobby, of course, with his yeses all the way through. Bobby, can you confirm for us, is this also a no?
Unfortunately, yes. Fear Street, again, this is one of those movies where I get to happily continue my gatekeeping streak of no's. It's just, I will say though, I do think I think I drop it down to 3.5.
I was going to say, do you hold that score the same as the first Fear Street movie?
No, I don't, because like this movie has a lot of catharsis in it, but not a lot else. Right? Yeah. A lot of the villains die, like everybody lives. There's a lot of catharsis in it where you like if you watch this movie in context, it's like, oh my god, thank God, no, nothing else bad happens. All the characters you like still make it, but also like. I just remember being deeply disappointed with how the villain goes in comparison to how some of your favorite characters from the first movie goes, and like, so yeah, 3.5.
I'm gonna mirror you a little bit here. I gave this one a 3, which was my lowest score so far. So I'd given 3.5, 3.5, 3. And I do think that this is half a point worse. I'm gonna give this the 2.5.
Oh.
I remember being the most excited for this one and then kind of being the most disappointed because it had so much that I was wanting out of it that I didn't get. And thinking back on it, the parts that I dislike are so much stronger than the parts that I did like. And this movie has this weird thing where it's kind of 2 movies at once, and it kind of shows you and then tells you all the things that are going on. And it really leaned too far into being a teen movie in the sense where it kind of talked down to its audience, where it expected its audience not to understand what was going on. And
there's some My Best Friend's Exorcist.
But like, despite that, I mean, the acting is still pretty good. It's all the same people in all 3 movies. Like, the movie is done well, but there's enough negatives to offset it. So I'm going to give it the 2.5. Definitely not essential. No.
I'm definitely still in the no on the essentiality. Same as I was back then. And in terms of score, I'm kind of waffling between dropping it the half and keeping it at the 3. because you know what? No, I'm going to stick with original Alan. I'm going to stick with the 3 that I gave it. I think it's just a little bit above average, and I think it kind of its faults were different than the faults of 78, but the like total sum of their faults kind of still was the same for me, which is kind of how they ended up at the same score. Even though I know my tone was quite different between the two movies. So yeah, I'm gonna stick with my guns at the 3 and no.
Next up, we had Resident Evil Village, episode 9. This
game.
is one of our only 2 episodes, I think, that was a standalone video game episode. So we played this. We all got it right when it came out. We played it right away, recorded as soon as we could without having pre-release copies. And with that, Alan and Bobby both gave a 4, and I gave a 4.5, with Alan and Bobby both giving a no and me giving a yes. So I'm going to kick it off immediately and adjust myself a little bit, but probably not that much. I'm going to drop to a 4. And I'm also going to say no, because at the time I'd said yes because Village was doing a lot culturally. It was really blowing up on social media. It was really like this whole thing. And
Big lady.
yeah, well, I mean, yeah, right. But like, I was kind of thinking, I was caught up, I think, in the zeitgeist of the moment. And looking back on it, like 7 is an easy yes because it really changed the franchise, and then 8 just did what Resident Evil does, which I don't disagree with. I love the game. I like it better than Village, probably, or than 7, probably. But it doesn't like do anything, I think, to actually make it essential. It's just like a great little entry to Resident Evil. So I'm going to change it to a no.
I'll go next, and I'm actually also going to drop it down a half point. I feel like I was overly defensive. Ben was in there, and Ben just did not. Ben hated this. Hated fucking.
Ben did not like this game.
He
at
hated
all.
Village a lot, and I don't think I think I liked a lot about half of this game. I liked the doll bit with the
the doll bit is so good
with the giant fetus. I liked all the parts with Big Lady
Demetrescu. I think.
Yeah,
that's the one. Whatever, right? With Big Lady
Vampire,
with Big Lady Vampire, and her hot daughters. But the second half of this game kind of like was a fart. Like it became too Resident Evil. Like we're just like now there's Machine Man and Fish Boy. Like it was like also your daughter's the reason why zombies exist. It's like she's an embodiment of the T virus. And I was like, eh. So like yeah, so 3.5, obviously no. If people don't remember Big Lady, if you're a Zoomer, if you're a millennial like us, you remember Big Lady, but that meme's dead.
Yeah, I mean, how can you forget, right?
Yeah,
can't forget Big Lady. I'm also dropping it to 3.5, but for none of the reasons that these guys have said. The reason I'm dropping it to 3.5, and this is one of those things where it's like time has passed and Resident Evil 4 got re-released, and I'm sorry, but this game cannot be within a point of Resident Evil 4 remake. It just can't. Resident Evil 4 is a fucking masterpiece. We were talking about the Capcom Renaissance, how we're still in it. Resident Evil 4 remake releasing and being exactly what it is just so good.
A game we famously
in every
not
single
covered
way
for the show.
Which
I guess we know that Alan's gonna say it's a 5.
Yeah. It's 5 and it's essential. Spoilers. So is Dead Space, for what it's worth. By the way, I'll just go ahead and just ruin that for anybody because they are. And I'm correct. You're wrong. If you disagree, I'm just gonna outright say it. But yes, I think for me, this is one of those things where knowing just how good some of the other entries are in this franchise, I can't have this be within a point. I just can't. It is a good game. It has its own good bits to it, but it is not within a point of the greatness that is Resident Evil 4. It's just not, and it's definitely not essential.
Yep. Oh,
do we even need to talk about this next one, boys?
Yeah. So we'll just fly through.
American Psycho 5. Yes.
5 and yes. Hall of Fame entry. It stands. If you haven't listened to episode 10 where we covered that one, it is the only episode where we've ever had Bobby's wife Mallory on the show, and it's worth the listen just for that alone. So go ahead and check that out.
She talked about how hot Christian Bale is, and y'all make fun of me because I get slightly perturbed by it for like a half second.
True.
It's very funny.
Episode 11, we covered Lights Out. This was former host
fucking
Grant's goodbye to the show. He always wanted to cover Lights Out, and he missed a few episodes, and this was his last actual episode. We gave it to him. Watch Lights Out. Alan gave this a 1, Bobby a 2, myself a 1.5 with a no, yes, no. I stand.
I gave it a
think
yes.
Alan stands. Now, Bob,
I absolutely
who has
stand.
forgotten why he gave it a yes, I will tell you why. Bobby gave this a yes because he said this movie is essential because it is a mark, a reminder to everybody of why sometimes something cannot be extrapolated on. Because this movie is famously an adaptation of a short film that is worse when it's big. And so Bobby's argument was that it was an amazing, amazing short film, but it just doesn't translate. Bobby, that was why you said yes as a cautionary tale. Do you stand by the yes? Or do you switch to a no?
I have to, but I have to drop this down to like a 0.5.
The 2 is so high. I don't know why you had a 2 on this.
Yeah, that's aggressive, buddy.
Because I think the Bobby 1.5s had happened at least one time. No, they hadn't yet. I don't know why.
No, I don't know. Maybe
I
you
don't-
just made it up.
Bobby.
Maybe you just made it up in your mind, so you knew.
I had it on my head like
it.
a 1.5 is really good,
Yeah.
and like yeah, like
Wasn't the Forever Purge the first? Was that the
yeah,
first
but
instance of the
it was
Bobby
not
1.5?
That was just a 1.5.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh man.
Ugh.
Okay. So then moving on, episode 11.
I stand by that though. I think that Lights Out is a very much a cautionary tale of like sometimes the shorts just like make a new movie.
It's a
do
good. It's
do
a
a different thing.
It's a good reason to have the yes. I'll say.
Yeah.
Episode 11, we covered Don't Breathe 2, our next brand new movie at the time,
garbage
where Alan gave this a 1, Bobby a 2 again, myself a 1.5, 3 no's.
I have raped.
I'm gonna go ahead first and drop this all the way to a 1 off the 1.5. And of course,
I'm gonna go
stick
ahead.
with
Just
a
no. Continue with Bobby dropping into a 1. This is. I don't know what I was thinking giving this movie a 2.
Yeah.
This movie, like the meth heads were they tried really hard. Like, hey, you're gonna like them. You like them actually, right? Because like,
Yeah. Like thinking back on this movie, I cannot think of why a 1.5 was not a high score, but why it even got that high.
My favorite part was it was in Michigan in the summer. We live in the Chicagoland area of Illinois. You know how muggy the summer gets. And there's a blind man who's like a big he's like Daredevil from Marvel Comics levels. Like I can sense that cannot smell his dead fucking dog. Like it's like
true.
the dumbest shit.
All right, episode 12. Or 13, sorry. We covered the new at the time Candyman, the 2021 Candyman.
What a good movie.
Alan and Bobby both with 5s, myself with a 4, but Alan with the only yes.
Yeah.
Now Alan with the perfect score, 5 and a yes. How do you feel about this? Do you hold or do you adjust?
I feel that my 5 is still very much on the point. I think that this movie is phenomenal. I think that this takes the franchise, brings it into the modern world. It does the requel thing perfectly. I think this has everything you want in a franchise coming back. I really do. Especially now that we live in like a post-Scream world too, with the newer Scream movies that have come out. I think this easily stands up to those films. Easily, and I have given those 5s. I believe all of them so far, frankly. So to me, the score is still right on the money. Essentiality-wise, this is tougher because I think when I look back on this yes, I feel good about this yes. But I don't know that my yes has proven true. So I'm going to stick to my guns here. Because this is one where I think I'm right. I think this does do enough. I think this brings the franchise back. I think this has what it needs to be in that essential category, especially with just how like evocative and creepy and how much it works. I think it does deserve that. And I think we might just not have had enough time for people to go like, you guys remember how great that Candyman movie was? Just yet. We haven't had that cycle of news to like really kind of kick it up. But yeah, I'm sticking to my guns here, 5 and yes.
Okay. Bobby?
I love this film.
I will keep with the 5, and I actually will adjust to a yes. This movie, as it sat with me, and as I was thinking about it, I was like, man, this movie is just it kind of treads the same ground as Candyman, where it's like it hits black issues at the time, right? The issues with between the issues that we find within Black America versus white America at the time, very much fucking people are shit to us, and we can pretend white people try to whitewash that everything's fine and dandy, but it still fucking isn't. I think that there is a certain level of it being just holy shit, this is really thought provoking. I think I gave it a 5 for good reason, because again, it's just a well directed, artful movie, but at the same time, it's just it sticks with you.
Last sequence near the end with the whole hive,
it's amazing.
Tony Todd.
Tony Todd comes back and goes remember me, and it's just fucking hell. Yeah, I really think this movie's essential. It's really good, and I can't I'm thinking of the scene with the artist, the art critic, getting dragged across the glass.
That was probably my favorite part of the whole thing.
With the teenagers, and
the teenagers in the bathroom,
and
my god,
and only the white and the Asian girl gets killed. There's just and only white people die from the Candyman. It's oh my god, it's just so good. Yeah, it's a 5 minutes essential. Yeah, I should have given it a yes then. I was nervous. I think I was playing very much that we were 13 episodes in. I couldn't give yes to things. And I was probably
brand new film.
Well, yeah. I'd already given yeses to too many brand new films at this time, where I felt wrong to give it a yes then. Yeah.
True. Okay, so I had the lowest, right? I had the worst score out of all of us. I had a 4, and I said no. So I'm going to go ahead, and I'm going to immediately adjust and say that this is a yes. I do think that this is a yes. And I know that I said no. I think at the time I was feeling pretty strongly about requels in general not getting a yes. We hadn't really done any up to this point. And so there was a little bit of a discussion about whether or not something that was inherently a retread, could be a yes. And I think that looking back on it, and keeping in mind how I feel about some other movies that have come out since then, this is an easy yes, right? Because this movie is really amazing. Why did I give it a 4 is a better question. A question that I wish I could answer, because I didn't go back and listen to the episode. Spoilers, I guess, to our viewers and listeners, but with 99 episodes and 99 movies, I didn't listen back to all the movies and all the episodes and rewatch all the movies.
No.
I couldn't tell you why I gave it a 4, because I also don't have notes on this episode, because I saw it in the theater and I didn't take notes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in my heart of hearts, this is not a 4, right? I know that this is higher than a 4. And I also know that if I give this a 5, it adds it to the Hall of Fame, right?
Mm-hmm. It's 2 Hall of Fame ads so far.
Now, you got to go with your gut here, man.
The thing is that
I feel I know where you're going.
I don't. Thinking back on this movie, right, and it's been 2 years, and I haven't watched it since then, right? So let's be clear here. Thinking back on the movie, I cannot think of one single reason not to give it the 5. I can't think of anything I don't like about it. The movie is just amazing, right? And it, Bobby kind of already said everything that I would have said, but I just can't think of anything that would drop it a whole half point even to 4.5. So I'm gonna bump it a full point from 4 to 5.
Do you have any idea how vindicating this one is for me, boys?
Yeah, Alan called it. That's true.
I'm being no cap on this one. I am I knew it. I knew it at the time.
I'm very nervous about listening back to the podcast and me making fun of Alan, which undoubtedly happened.
It must have, did.
It must have. Yeah. And Alan, I won't apologize. I will never apologize.
I understand.
All right, so our next episode was
Lake Mungo. We're only 14 episodes in.
Yeah, but we'll get there.
We are gonna have to take pee breaks. Listen, it's gonna happen.
Absolutely.
Lake Mungo was episode 14. Alan, you gave this a 4. Bobby a 4.5. Myself a 4.5. With yes, yes, yes all across. Alan with the lowest previous score, even by only half a point. Where do you
I
sit
know.
on this?
See, this one's weird because like I kind of think I'm good here at the 4 and yes. I don't because we just talked about fucking Candyman.
Don't let that
Like Mungo isn't a
change.
Candyman.
Like, you know,
I know, but like it's one of those things where I enjoy like Mungo. I think it's a pretty solid film. But I don't think it gets into the 4.5 or 5. I think I'm good at 4 and yes
Okay.
for me. I think that's right where it feels good to be at for me.
Bobby is having an internal debate with his soul right now. Bobby, why don't you tell the class how
this
you feel?
movie's almost a yes. Sorry, go ahead.
No, let Alan finish his point.
Yeah.
I was gonna say this movie's
Sorry,
almost
Alan.
a yes just on like the end credit sequence alone when you find out,
honestly.
oh yeah, the kid was in the background the whole time.
Yeah.
Like Jesus Christ, just as such a good subversive mechanism by which it works. So good.
This movie relies too much on the end credits, and I was too excited at the time. It's 3.5 out of 5.
Wow, full point drop.
Yeah,
That's huge.
What about Essential?
it's still essential.
Okay.
It's
Well,
like
you're
it's like-
waffling.
it's the most iconic Australian horror movie I've ever seen in my entire life, right? And I've seen the other one. You know, the one in the Outback, the one that's essentially a Saw clone.
Yeah.
That I can't remember of. Yeah, Wolf Creek. Was it Wolf Creek?
that is it. Wolf
Yeah,
Creek.
yeah. And Wolf Creek is fine. It's boring.
Yeah.
It's just it's a gore flick. Like, this is actually interesting. It's still, yes, it's probably the most interesting. But like, this movie, like, you go, oh my god, what? Oh, there is a ghost the entire time. Like, it just twists and turns. But the problem is like the first twist is like you can like is they show it. And after the first time watching this movie, you're like, there he is. And like, it like ruins like like this movie does not work on rewatchings. And then like, if like on the third watching, you're like watching the after credits where you can see the daughter, and everything. It's just like, there she is. And like, it ruins it because like, you realize the first time you're watching it, it actually isn't spooky. It's more so that like you're actually catching the actual spooky stuff, but like they're focusing on the wrong spooky stuff, and you trick your brain into following it. It actually gives you more ideas of like how documentaries work than it does like how like actual spooky shit actually happens in the thing. So like, it doesn't work on a rewatch as much as like some of the more essential movies do.
So I actually
Or it doesn't work. But out.
Right. I will hold at the 4.5 and a yes. I think that this movie, it does work on rewatches, actually for the reasons that Bobby says it doesn't work. I think that that's true for most found footage movies. I think that a lot of found footage movies rely on very similar tricks. And most found footage movies will even do like that little thing where they show you old clips, or they explain like what happened or whatever. And like, for me at least, like, that doesn't bring it down. I think that it enhances the second watch. And I think that having the horror always there and not something that you would have missed it the first time. I love this movie. I love Lake Mungo, and I think about it all the time.
It's really good.
I remember that I have my score up here, and I had written down, so in my OneNote, I try and write down a score after I watch the movie, and then the final score is when we actually watch it. And my final score is a 4.5, but the score that I gave the movie when I watched it was a 4. And I hold that this movie increases as you think about it. And I want to give it the 5, but I just don't think it's quite there because it is flawed. It's not a perfect movie. But something about this one just like sticks with you. So I hold 4.5.
I will say there is something about this movie that sticks with you. There's a human element to it that's really fun.
Yeah.
However, I will say, just to counter Corbin's point one last time, and like Corbin can have the last word because he did have it, but like I think that there's like a difference between this and like, say, like the Hell House franchise, where like the stuff that they show again is like creepy. Some of the stuff they show again mid movie. And it almost feels like a reward, but then they show it at the end credits, and it's like, what was the reward here? Because I saw both of these things, because you just end up staring at the screen like, what is happening? And you see both things like, oh, what is creepy here? And the first time they show, it's like, actually, it's the least creepy thing is the scary thing. And it's just like, okay, like, so like there is a certain level of like, all right, whatever. Like I saw all of it by the end of it. Like,
yeah, no, I think
Yeah.
I don't think that's an unfair opinion. So episode 15, we watched Beyond the Black Rainbow.
Beyond the Black Rainbow.
This was a movie that we were pretty maligned on actually during the review, but then gave a relatively solid scores despite Bobby pushing and pushing and pushing for this movie while we watched it. Our Alan gave it a 2.5, Bobby a 4, myself a 3.5, all 3 yeses. I'm gonna go right away and say that I hold the score at 3.5. I think this movie is quite good. But I'm gonna say no. I don't think this movie is essential. Like, I understand why I said yes at the time, but thinking on the movie, I think it was more like something I wanted to be a yes. But even at the time, with 11 years of hindsight, right, I probably could have seen that this movie was not a yes. And I stand that this movie is a no, but it is pretty good.
I need to bump my score.
Okay. Well, yeah, for you that makes sense. Yeah.
I'm gonna go to a 3.5 out of 5. This is one of those ones I remember so I reviewed this for our Letterboxd, and my first paragraph goes something like this: in college, I saw Richard III. I did not know that I would be listening to English spoken as if it was roughly 1592. That's on me. I'm not the brightest bulb in the box sometime. I bring this up because Beyond the Black Rainbow made me feel like I did when I saw Richard III. And I think at the time I was correct with that statement, but I have watched this movie since, and it does this esoteric thing fairly well, all things considered. And I think on multiple viewings, this movie does, especially for me, kind of come to light in a much better way. I also am in the no camp, though. I have to revise down to a no, because as much as I enjoy this movie, and as much as I think it has an interesting art direction, I don't know that it has an interesting horror direction that really, like, does enough to get it there for me. So I'm also down to a no.
I'll maintain 4 and yes. This is the ultimate comfort movie if you like me. If you're like me at all, like, this movie is just so good, and you're wrong. This movie is just fucking amazing, and like, there's a weird calming, like, there's a weird like anxiety that ends in an intense calm at the end of the movie. It's just like there's a peak, there's a slow rise to a peak, and then an intense like drop into a like, it's done, everything is okay now, and it feels so good to watch this movie. And like, as a horror movie, I feel like this captures what you want to feel in a horror movie more than most horror movies do. Like, it's just like, oh, like that's what I feel when I feel this horror movie every single time. I love it. I would give it a higher score, but in all honesty, I can't score this better than what I'm going to score Mandy whenever we get to it. Like,
Mandy is so fun. Oh,
all right, so
this is gonna be an interesting one.
Yeah, the next movie we did was *Malignant*, a movie that I have brought up quite a lot actually in the last 2 years.
I have too, actually.
This was episode 16.
I'm gonna get myself out of the way.
We all gave
I'm
it,
at the same.
We all gave
I'm
it
at the same.
a 3.5. We all gave a 3.5 and a no. And I okay, Alan is holding. I'm gonna go ahead and quickly.
I'm gonna just get out the way for you guys, because I'm confident with where I'm at, and I know you guys are gonna change at least some of this part of this movie. So take it away.
I agree. I think so. I have now seen Basket Case. I feel like I can appropriately score this film. And with that in mind,
holy shit,
I bumped my score. I give this a 4, but I hold my no. I really
Right.
like Malignant. I have watched it since then. It's a great fun. It is cheesy in all the right ways. I really love this movie. I'm okay if I'm way higher than everybody else. I don't care.
No, you're not. Because here's
Yeah.
the thing.
Yeah.
I also bumped my score to a 4. And hold on, no. This movie kicks so much ass.
Yeah.
The
It's just
entire
great.
John Wick scene in the police department, just like
Yes.
John Wick scene is pretty great.
like the scene
Throwing
where
the chair at someone who's already on the ground.
every single woman in the prison cell is just dirty for no reason. Like
The prisoners.
like
Ugh.
it's like a Giallo comedy. It's just so good. Like
Oh, all right.
I think the next one can be pretty quick because I need to revise
episode
my
17 was Nightmare on Elm Street, the original. Bobby and I both gave it 5s and yeses. Alan stopped it from entering the Hall of Fame with a 4.5 and a yes.
like a fucking idiot.
I obviously hold. Bobby obviously
Yeah,
holds. Alan,
I hold.
Alan, do you adjust?
It's a 5.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
5
yep.
at the yes. There's we don't need to. Yeah,
Alright.
I was wrong. I have no idea what I was thinking. So
Well, this was still earlier
It's
in
5
your
yes.
life here, so.
I guess.
The next,
Hold on. When does my excuses run out, or when do my excuses run
I'd say
out?
after the
with-
first
with
year,
the-
so the second half of the
52.
show. Yeah.
After episode 52, yeah.
Yep.
For sure.
The next episode we did was Troll Hunter, a fun little romp. Alan gave it a 3.5. Bobby and myself with 2.5s, all no's. Bobby, why don't you
hold.
kick us off here? You hold?
I hold. I hold. I like it. It's fine.
Yeah.
Like it's
Go. Yeah. Do you have any?
no. No. It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
I burped at the end of it. It's fine. But it's fine.
I also hold. I liked this movie. I don't love this movie. It's a 2.5. It's a no. It's pretty solidly average, but yeah.
I'm looking for a while, and I'm getting worried that the last 100 or so episodes is going to be. I hold.
No, we'll get through some.
I'm also at the 3.5.
Yeah.
I really
You
enjoyed Troll
hold
Hunter.
at a 3.5.
I love
Alan
Troll
did
Hunter,
really like this movie.
unironically.
I mean,
I loved this film.
Jill-
it was so much fun for
Jill,
me.
I think would if we had her. I mean, I think she probably would give this movie like a 4. I mean, like this.
It was
It was
fun.
just a great little movie.
I
yeah.
didn't need much out of Troll Hunter, frankly, to be very happy with it, and it gave me exactly what it was.
That's fair.
Boys, I have another revision to make.
Yeah, right now at Prince of Darkness.
I was
Episode
looking at my
19,
notes.
Prince of Darkness.
There's no reason this movie's not a 5.
Alan,
Dude, it's
I'm wrong.
so good,
Alan had a
right?
4.
That's what I'm saying.
Bobby and myself with 5s. A no, yes, yes. Alan, I obviously hold it a 5 and a yes. I love this movie.
Dude, it's amazing.
It's a fantastic movie. Yeah.
It is one of the most truly terrifying movies you'll ever watch.
This is one of those I didn't understand. I just didn't understand what I was exactly watching at the time. And it's just a romp. It's a silly, goofy, wacky film that's also like incredibly dark and like disgusting in all of the best kinds of ways.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a 5 and yes.
Just like the scene.
It's funny seeing
the scene
all
where
these movies
where the girl
Sorry,
is
go
like typing on the computer and like the god plutonium will not save you. No one will save you. It's
well, I
like,
was looking at my notes and it's just like
and like
well, Corbin, wasn't your point like techno religion is something you want way more
Techno
of?
Faith I cut. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
and just like the scene where the guy who gets stabbed trying to leave, he's just like, I've got some news and you're not going to like it. And just the bugs talking through him. It's just like, oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking. I was an idiot. So
So
Our Hall of Fame has decidedly getting more
it
big.
has grown. Next up,
Well, now in my at least 2 of those are purely because I was an idiot in the early bits of the show.
Well, Alan, everybody
they should have
knows-
always been there.
Alan, everybody knows you're an idiot, so it's
This is true.
so for
All right,
next
Halloween
up,
Kills.
yeah, Halloween Kills. We watched this right when it came out. Alan with a 3.
Speaking of idiots,
Bobby with a 4.
speaking of idiots,
Myself
me
with
giving
a
it a score of
3.5.
4.
All knows. So I'm actually going to start because I think I'm the only one that has rewatched this movie since then, and because I watched the whole trilogy before Halloween Ends came out, and I will say that my score is probably accurate for the extended edition of the movie, but it's not the version of the movie that we have the score for, and I'm going to drop to a 3 because the theatrical cut of this movie is just not that good. So I'm going to say 3 and no off of the 3.5.
I will go ahead and mirror your score with a 3 and no. I was so stoked on another Halloween movie, and this just, in hindsight, was fine.
Yeah.
I said 3 and no at the start. That's what it is.
Fair.
It's a 3 and no.
Next up,
we have an easy one next.
Scream, 1996. We all said 5. We all said yes. Obviously, we will, I think, all hold there and keep it in the Hall of Fame. After that, episode 22, Antlers, a movie
what a disappointing
right near
movie.
the top of the list of things that we could easily forget ever existed without seeing it on the list. Alan a 2, Bobby a 2.5, myself a 3, all no's. I will drop to 2.5. But hold the no, obviously.
I'm actually going to bump to 2.5 as well, but keep with the no, because I think we have watched substantially
objectively
there are
right
substantially
all the time.
Worse.
Ignore everything else you've heard.
Films.
Ignore everything else you've heard. This entire podcast, I'm objectively right all the time.
So next
show
up,
where people got
episode
to know
23, our most personal. Honestly, it's been 77 episodes since then. Still one of my favorite episodes we've done. Where we recorded.
That's probably our best.
3 Catholic boys.
Midnight Mass. The TV show. Alan with a 5 and a no. Bobby with a 4.5 and a yes. And myself, appropriately, a 5 and a yes. I hold 5 and a yes. I've watched the show since then. I watch it every Easter. It is just amazing. One of my favorite things I've ever seen ever. It's just perfect. So, I hold.
As a biased individual, this should have been a yes back when. I don't know what I was thinking to say no, and I say that because I don't know that there's another horror I don't think there's another piece of horror media that so expertly combines Catholicism into horror in a way that is done like this. I still think about this show. Like we talk about Blood Diner. It's going to come up at some point here tonight. What a movie.
We're getting close.
But like I still talk about this film as like this series is a touchstone of like, oh, you need to see this. And like, it's one of those things where retrospectively, it's like, if I'm telling people they need to see this, well, then yeah, like, of course it kind of falls. It's not like we say plenty of times, like, oh, you should watch this movie. I don't necessarily say you need to see this. And if you're a Catholic, this should be the very top of your list of horror experiences. So I'm bumping 5 to a yes. Bobby's conflicted.
Objectively, the answer is no. But here's the beauty of this, gentleman. There's been a time where I have gone and said 5 and yes on pure, unadulterated bias. And here's another opportunity for me to do that again. 5 and yes. Is this series objectively perfect? No. Is this movie objectively perfect if you're an Irish Catholic? You fucking goddamn better believe. 5 out of 5, yes, baby. Like,
oh man, what a flick.
Also, hold on, statistics brain. That's our first TV show that cracks into the Hall of Fame.
It's also
the only TV show.
Oh, easily. Can you imagine?
The only TV show before Ash vs. the Evil Dead.
Well,
I said before, and you better say yes to that.
So next up, we had the wonderful and hilarious flavor adjustment to Thanksgiving, the 2009 classic. Alan gave us a 1.5. Bobby and myself with a 1. All 3 yeses. I'm gonna stick with the yes, but I'm gonna bump my score. I don't think it is just a 1. I am gonna say this might be a 2. This is kind of just like a very dumb, very fun movie. It's not actually that bad. And even though it is actually that bad, it feels like it's more than that. So I'm gonna say 2.
I hold the yes. I remember the reason why I said it couldn't be a Bobby 1.5 out of 5.
Yes.
And that was the homophobic jokes.
Yep.
It was all the homophobia. And I shouldn't have said it because I wanted to give it a Bobby 1.5 out of 5. but it
brought
feels
up
really
his
bad
own
to
reasoning.
say.
Just pop that
Yeah.
half point. I mean, what's half a point?
Hit the enter, buddy. I've got it ready to pop.
Yeah, but here's the thing, right? It is a 1.5 out of 5 because I know I've given movies that have homophobic jokes in it before. But the thing is like it's problematic and it's wrong, but it's still fucking Thanksgiving.
Well, that's
right.
yeah. That's
There's
the thing.
misogyny. There's homophobia in it. It's not what you want to hear. And listen, there's parts of this movie where I will cringe, but also, there's a whole song about like the fat guy and the nerd guy like kissing each other, and it's like it's funny. So like go with it.
Yeah.
Are you sticking with your yes as well?
Of course I am. It's fucking Thanksgiving.
Okay, well, I mean, I had to make sure. I'm good at my 1.5 and a yes. I'm good.
Okay. Next up, Resident Evil. Welcome
Why did I
to
give this a
Raccoon
2?
City. A 2
gave this
What
from
am I
Alan.
thinking? I gave this a
What
2.
the fuck is
A
your
half,
problem, bud?
half point from Bobby and a 1 from me. 3 no's. Keeping in mind, we reviewed this almost 2 years ago, and a sequel is coming. How do we feel about it, Alan?
There's a sequel coming.
Yes,
Yeah.
Alan.
I'm gonna bump down to a 1.
Okay.
This movie's not good. I remember enjoying this movie because it's very dumb.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun.
Very, very dumb fun.
Remember the
But
part
no,
in the
this
review
movie-
where I thought the truck driver
This
was the
movie's a good
director?
one.
Yes. I'm gonna just hold at the 1. This movie is very bad.
Yep.
Which means I'm saying it's much worse than Thanksgiving, and honestly, yes, it is.
I'm fine. I'm fine with the
I
0.5.
agree with that.
I'm fine with the 0.5.
Okay.
And yeah, I think this is not the one I was thinking of.
Yeah. So then we had episode 26, Ghostbusters Afterlife. Alan with a 2.5, Bobby with a 4, myself with a 3, and 3 no's. Bobby, I'd like to go to you first. I remember your score was very high because you had a lot of strong feelings in the theater. You had a lot of strong feelings because of how you saw it, when you saw it. Like,
Yeah.
do you stick with the 4?
I watched this movie in a theater that was largely empty in the front row, cuddling on a love seat theater thing at an Imagine Theater. If you've got one near you, please support them. They're a small business. With my wife, we had pizza, we had popcorn. It was a wonderful night. It was a very heartwarming and comfortable evening. And I felt really good about it. This movie is absolutely a 2.5 out of 5 in hindsight. It's fine. It's pretty stupid. And there's a large part of this movie that is unnecessary. Everything with Finn Wolfhard just dumb. But yeah. Other than that,
Yep.
pretty good. 2.5 out of 5. Elf so and no.
I'm gonna stick with my original 2.5 and no.
All right.
I'm good there.
I had a 3 and a no. I'm gonna adjust a little bit because I remember not really liking this movie very much, but still giving it a decent score because the movie wasn't bad. But when I think back on this movie, I only have negative thoughts. I don't have any good thing to say about this movie. But I know it wasn't poorly made, so I'm gonna only drop it to a 2. So I'm gonna say 2.
Oh damn!
I'm gonna say 2 and no. I don't think this is really a good movie, but it is what it is. So, oh well.
Anyway, after that we have Hell House.
We do have
LLC.
So yeah, Hell House LLC. Alan and Bobby with 4.5, so myself with a 5. All yeses. I stand 5 and a yes. I stand.
Alan, please go. Make your choice. I know where I'm at, but make your choice, my guy.
I'm trying to think what would have made me give it a 4.5. Give me 2 seconds because I do have notes for this one.
I'll go.
I know.
This movie is really good, but this is a movie that I feel strongly is a 4.5 and a yes. This movie is really fun. It's a clip. You watch it, you will enjoy. It's a good time. But there is something about this movie that feels a little bit forced. It's actually a problem of this entire series. where there's too many like plot dumps that happen in this movie. There's bits of this movie that don't feel natural enough to give it a 5. Where every movie that we've talked about beforehand and after, including Scream and Candyman 2019 or whatever, the 2021 or whatever the hell it was, where everything feels kind of like natural. Hell House, there's like this whole bit where they're like, by the way, the Everton Hotel is like super haunted for these reasons, and it's like, okay, like it just does not. They try to play both ends where it's like there's like this hidden thing, but also there's this thing. So yeah, I'm gonna say 4.5. And yes, it's essential. It's one of the better found footage movies, but it's not the best found footage movie.
I struggle to think of anything I don't like about Hell House, the original. I really do, because my memory of it is incredibly positive. I remember it being like genuinely scary, which was different compared to the next couple of ones. So I'm going to bump it to the 5 and keep my yes. I think it is a phenomenal example of just how good found footage can really be.
Yeah.
Dead Alive.
Yeah, next up, Dead Alive, Peter Jackson's movie. We had a 2 from Alan, 4 from Bobby, 3 from me. We're kind of running the whole gamut here. All 3 no's. I feel good about the 3. I immediately, after seeing all 3 no's, wanted to switch to a yes because of Peter Jackson's horror work. And then I immediately remembered that there's actually another of his horror movies that I want to give the yes to. And I don't think that there needs to be multiple of them, all things considered. So I'm going to stick with the 3 and the no. I like that.
I'm actually going to stick with the 4, but I think I will go to the yes. This is the horror that I conflate with Peter Jackson. I was convinced by you, but I haven't seen that movie, and I still haven't seen that movie.
Yep.
I've seen Dead Alive 2 to 3 times before I watched it this time. And it's really fun. I kick ass for the Lord. The priest doing kung fu with the zombies, fucking amazing. Like, so yeah.
Which one is this? Hold on, I'm confusing this with a different movie.
Are you confusing it with Brain Dead? Because it's the same movie as Brain Dead.
I am confusing it with Brain
so
Dead.
It's the same movie.
That is this movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
It just has a different.
Is that the one where like?
Yeah, I kick ass for the Lord. He comes with the lawnmower at the end.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I was getting at.
Yeah,
Okay, lawnmower.
that- yeah,
Okay,
that
got
was
it. Okay. This movie's funny. I didn't like. I'm still not super big on horror comedies. It's kind of a thing that is really permeated. But this is pretty great. So I'm gonna bump it to the 3.
Okay.
Because I do think it is genuinely like a pretty good example of that type of genre. And I Kick Ass for the Lord is phenomenal. But I'm also at a no still. I just don't think it.
Oh my god! I think this is the first Bobby 1.5. I think we found it.
Silent Night, Deadly Night. Alan with a 3, myself with a 3, Bobby 1.5. We had a yes, no.
I'll hold for what it's worth.
You'll hold. So this one's tough for me because I remember I gave it a 3 and I said no, and I think I said no because I wanted to give. I was like, well, there's only going to be one that's essential, and it's going to be Silent Night, Deadly Night 2, because Garbage Day. And I've now watched the first 2 a few times since then because I really love these movies. And I actually
Silent Night Deadly Night 2 is like 45 minutes of that movie is.
This is the one that's a yes. We haven't done Silent Night, Deadly Night 2 for the show proper. I did it for 30 Days of Horror, and then I've watched it myself. But whether or not Silent Night, Deadly Night 2 still gets the yes for the meme, it's this one that actually deserves the yes on its own merits. So I'm going to say 3 still, and yes.
I'm holding at my 3 and yes. Silent Night, Deadly Night is just a boatload of fun. This one also holds a special place in my heart because background info for the listeners. This was the first episode I guest appeared on in the old show. Was Silent Night Deadly?
Yeah,
Thanks
that's
for
right.
covering
This
that.
was our first full
So.
redo.
Yep.
Might be one of our only redos.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we haven't done. We've talked about it, Possessor, a bunch, but we've never covered it for the show. God, what a movie!
101, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Everyone feels good.
Terror Train.
Oh my God, the Train of Terror.
So next up, it was episode 30, Terror Train. You like that?
We took a pee break. We took a pee break.
I had some nerds. It was tasty.
My God. This was a movie that I remember not really liking at all. We all gave it. Well, sorry, we didn't all give it. I gave it a 1.5. Alan gave it a 1.5. Bobby, a 2.5. 3 no's.
I'm willing to drop it to a 2.
Okay. I hold at 1.5. I don't think that this is very good. And I'm gonna stick with the no. So I'm gonna stay right there.
It's got a scream queen in it. It's pretty fun.
Is that all it takes to get a 2?
Yeah.
Watch yourself when we go over Friday the 13th.
Jamie Lee Curtis is pretty good. It's pretty good.
Have you watched Halloween Resurrection lately?
She's fine in it. The beginning bit's pretty good. The beginning bit's pretty good at that.
Oh boy! All right. Well,
it gets worse after she dies.
Yeah,
So you telling me I'm wrong in that?
no, I would never.
Yeah. Thank you. Fucking thank you.
Episode 31, the Jared Leto classic, Urban Legend.
I gave this movie a 2.5. What was I thinking?
Alan 1.5, Bobby 2.5, myself a 2, all 3 no's. This one, I'll say, I feel nothing about the 2. I like the 2. Over the last year and a half, I've seen some things that have made me reconsider the no. But in the end, I'm just going to keep it as a no because as much as it might deserve the yes, there are other things that deserve the yes more. And it's like, we can't just give a yes to every 90s slasher just because it came out after Scream. Like, it's just not enough.
Yeah.
So I'm going to stick with the no.
I agree entirely. I do remember why I gave this a 2.5 out of 5. And it had to do with VH1 I Love the 90s. This movie was so much scarier in that hindsight because it came out in like the mid 2000s, and I was like, oh my God, like they make it so scary. This movie is absolutely a 2.0. Like this movie is a waste of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about as derivative as it gets a Scream in all the worst ways. I'm gonna stick with the objectively correct 1.5 and no.
So next up, episode 32, I will say, maybe one of our more contentious episodes. This is one that I've actually heard the most about personally, of people disagreeing with our scores and our essentiality, which kind of like makes me feel good, because it's like, ooh, maybe we're being a little bit spicy. But also, like, I feel like doing this when we did it, we were on this kick. I think it may have colored our perception of the movie a little bit. Final Destination, Alan with the 4, Bobby with the 3, myself with a 3.5, Alan yes, Bobby and myself no. I am absolutely changing to a yes. And I want to...
This was one of the most surprising ones for me, by the way.
In what?
Just like in the episode.
Yeah.
How are you guys not getting this? Is kind of like how
I'm gonna push the score to a 4. It's one of those that like I think like, man, like this movie probably should be higher ranked, but I think its essentiality actually is so strong compared to what I had said that it colors the way, even now that I'm thinking about like the score itself, like the movie isn't actually that amazing, but it is actually that influential. So the no was a massive mistake on my part, but I don't think it's that much better than I said. So I'm gonna just say a 4.
I'm gonna go ahead and correct Corbin and say that this movie is still absolutely a fucking 3. It's not great, but it is essential. Yeah. Absolutely. It's Final Destination, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was stupid. I think I was that disappointed at how boring Final Destination 1 is because you remember nothing. You know what? I'm going to say you remember 0 kills from Final Destination, but it's still
I
Final
remember
Destination.
Billy being killed.
What happened to Billy?
Billy, they're running over the train track, and the piece of metal comes and cuts his head off.
So here's the thing. Give it a year. Watch the other Final Destination movies. You will not remember Stifler getting killed. I'm telling you right now, there is 0 memorable kills from this movie that end up in the Final Destination franchise. But it is still the first one, and it does give the idea of like death coming back to do its still. It's yes, but it's not that good of a movie.
It's funny that Corbin says he bumped the score and the essentiality, and I'm actually going to do keeping the essentiality, but I'm dropping the score to a 3.5. I think there's far better movies we've seen.
Oh my god, we've come full circle.
Huh.
So I'm dropping the score, but I am keeping it essential because it absolutely is.
Okay. So next up,
this one.
I Know What You Did Last Summer. All 3, 2.5. A no from Bobby, a no from Alan, a yes from me. I hold my score. This is only an average film, and I hold my yes. I remember all of my reasons for saying yes at the time. I think that those are absolutely true, very strong reasons, and I really do think that this movie deserves the yes.
You're right. I think I agree with you. Right, the fact that Fred and Daphne get together and not Sheldon, the other guy from Big Bang Theory, takes the black pill and then dies, and it does. No, this movie is fine. It's whatever. It's forgotten history. It's stupid.
It's forgotten history. I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Make it go away. Make it go away. I don't care.
You're insane.
I'm at my same value.
Dude.
2.5 and no. I think it's too derivative. I don't think this doesn't.
This is the movie that other movies are derivative of. This movie and Scream, the pair.
Derivative of
that was only
no,
one movie.
No.
Yeah, dude.
No.
This is
this movie.
all over the ledge. Yeah.
No, I disagree entirely. This movie is the beginning of being derivative. It's like
the OG derivative of Scream.
Do you change your essentiality or no?
No, of course not.
Because Alan had it.
Alan had me. I thought you said, you kind of sounded like you were saying yes, it is.
No, of course I don't.
I think that
this movie's stupid as hell.
I stand by it. I think you guys are insane, and you're missing the mark on I Know What You Did Last Summer. I'm sorry. This is an iconic teen horror movie from the era.
I will tell you what I did miss the mark on.
Scream.
Yes.
Scream 2022
is 5.
All right.
Is a 5 and a yes for me. I fucked it up.
Alan and I both gave this a 5 and a yes already. I hold because I really love this movie. The only thing that has made me adjust my thoughts about this film was seeing Scream 6, because Scream 6 is the better movie. But I still think that I think it might just be a better 5. So I stand by Scream 5.
Yeah, I stick with what I said originally. Scream 5 is so good. It brought the franchise back in an interesting way. It does requels in a way that's good. Like it's so funny to me to see Scream be like this bastion of like it kicks off the like resurgence of horror, and then it does it again. Like it's just, I don't know, it's just very interesting to me.
We haven't watched all of the Scream movies of the podcast, but I have a hard time believing that every Scream movie isn't just fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there might be some that are less than 5 and less than essential, but like
there's one.
A bad Scream movie is like a 4 out of 5. You know what I mean?
Right.
So like,
that's called Scream 3, Bobby.
Well, listen, champ. I wasn't gonna say it. Right?
I'll just say it outright, okay? I have watched all of these relatively recently,
which is wild considering
fantastic.
How many people hate Scream 4, despite Wes Craven giving everything about the future absolutely correct. It's crazy.
This next one's easy.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre, 3 5s, 3 yeses.
Yep. Yep.
After that, we did Wrong Turn. This was an era when we were doing months themed around like one new release. So we're trying to like remember that. So we did Wrong Turn, the first one, with 3 2.5s, with 2 no's and a yes. With the one yes being mine. I stand for sure on the 2.5. The yes feels a little bit weird. I know that I said yes because like it's one of those movies that is culturally really well known, and I want to keep it for the same, honestly, for a lot of the same reasons why I kept I Know What You Did Last Summer, which I feel really strongly about. Wrong Turn, I feel much less strongly about, but I'm gonna keep the yes anyway because it is kind of in that weird bastion of movies that, like, despite its quality, it is a yes. Actually, I I kind of want
Do
to
it.
adjust the score to a 2, but I'm gonna keep the yes still because I don't actually think it is an average movie, but I think it is an oddly essential movie.
I will also adjust my score to a 2, but I will keep the thing as no. I don't give a fuck about this movie. Like,
I'm at the same. I remember this movie having its bits I enjoyed. I remember kind of being very painfully average. So 2.5, no for me.
Next up, The Hills Have Eyes, the
Hills Have
original.
Eyes.
Alan 3, Bobby 4.5, myself 3.5. Again, 2 no's and a yes, with me as the only yes. This is a very interesting little scenario that we keep putting ourselves into. I will adjust my score down to a 3, and I will hold the yes. I think this movie is essential. I honestly I didn't really like it that much, thinking back on it, and I really have no interest in watching it again. And it feels like it isn't that great even for the time, but it does some interesting things that I would say put it to the 3 over like a 2.5. But it also simultaneously has this very renowned place in pop culture, so I'm gonna keep the yes.
I'm gonna hold the score and also change my thing to a yes. I agree with Corbin that this is a movie that I don't want to watch again, but for different reasons. This movie makes me very uncomfortable, in a way that I think it is intentional. There's a lot of just like sexual assault and like animal cruelty and just like incest and just like the fallout of the atomic bomb and just like all of this is just like I hate, and like racism and homophobia. There's just a lot here that is meant to be here to make you uncomfortable. This movie you're not supposed to watch twice. I think that's the whole point. Is this movie supposed to like sit with you and you go like, fuck, I hated that, but also it made me think. And I think that it's very successful in that. And I think that that's why it holds such a place in people's minds. So I think I was wrong to say no. I do think I was right to say that it does. It is art that gives you the emotion that you're meant to feel.
So I'm gonna stick my score 3. I'm good with that. I got no qualms there. This movie kind of makes me feel like Last House on the Left did. Like it has a similar-ish kind of like I feel a little gross when I think of this film. You know, like it has that just kind of like the overall what's going on is just a little harder to stomach. But I don't know that it really like pushes over that barrier for me into essentiality. So I'm going to stick with my no.
What a difficult no. Wow.
It was a little tough one.
Fuck this movie. Fuck this movie so hard.
What movie?
You
so
mentioned
here's
this
the
movie for
all right.
like 4 weeks in a row after
Obviously, nobody else can see the sheet that we're looking at. So this movie is Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022.
Fuck it. Fuck it hard.
Bobby gave it a 0.5 point. Alan a 1. Myself a 1.5 with 3 no's. I I stand by the 1.5. I don't think it's as bad as Bobby thinks it is. Definitely not essential. I mean, it's just is what it is.
I'm sticking at my 1 and no.
There's enough fun to give it the half point. There's another movie that I feel very close to this movie for. We'll get to it when we get to it. I'll tell you guys. But no, it's absolutely not like essential, and I hate it. I hate this movie so fucking much. It's this. I hate this movie because it tries to be nothing. It tries to be nothing. So yeah,
It tries to be nothing.
that's that. It tries to be nothing.
I love that.
Aggressively tries to be nothing.
It aggressively tries to be nothing.
Episode 39, we covered Maniac Cop. This was our Irish month. Remember we did that we did a St. Patty's Day month. Alan gave this a 2.5 and a yes. Bobby 3 and a no. Myself a 2.5 and a no. Alan gave it a yes because it was the first horror comedy that he actually enjoyed, and so for himself it was a yes.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and revise that. No, this movie's not essential. I'm wrong. Thank you for reminding me of that, because I'm sitting here like desperately trying to think like what could this movie have done that would even make me consider that? Absolutely not. That's not good enough.
Do you keep the score?
Yeah, I'm gonna keep. Yeah, I think it's average, but yeah, 2.5.
I'm also going to keep the score 2.5 and a no. I mean, it's a fun movie, but it's not bad. It's not great. It's just
This was at a time.
is.
This was at a time where I was really nervous to give 2.5s because I kept saying 2.5 is really bad. Which is like incorrect. There can be really good 2.5 movies, and Maniac Cop is one of them. Like this is a monolith film for us, where it's like, God damn, I love this movie, but it is aggressively average. So there's a difference between like a movie that is like so milquetoast that it's a 2.5, and a movie that is so like ups and downs that it's a 2.5. And this is a Maniac Cop where it's just like, man, there's some real high notes in this movie, but there's also some real low notes. where like for instance the part in the very beginning where she goes, "Hey, these two Puerto Ricans tried to mug me." That's a low note of this movie.
Oh yeah. But a fun film nonetheless.
Oh, for sure.
Episode 40, we covered the original Leprechaun, famously starring Jennifer Aniston, pre-Friends. Alan and Bobby both with a 1, sorry, and myself with a 2.5. Alan gave this a no. Bobby and myself a yes. I'm gonna go ahead and just give Bobby a tiny little moment of satisfaction because I saved these up throughout the year. So over these last 100 episodes, I've saved up tiny little kernels of satisfaction that I can throw at Bobby every now and then just to make him feel a little bit better. And he's seeing me put a 2.5 and a yes and thinking, there's no way. I'd be so happy if it wasn't a 2.5 and a yes. And here's the thing, right? Is that sometimes satisfaction is imagined, and I hold my score at 2.5 and a yes.
Oh. What is that called in porn? What is it called? Orgasm? You ruined my orgasm.
I'm sorry. I really love this movie. I think it's just totally an average creature feature.
Garbage.
It's as good as it is. It's
Fuck
as
you,
good as it
Lucky
is.
Charms.
Yeah. See, this is
you're gonna tell
me
me
a point right there. There's a point.
The whole point for one line.
You're right.
Oh
you're right.
God.
It is the point of this movie. Is fuck you, Lucky Charms. I hold.
I do as well. I think 1 and no.
It's Leprechaun, dude. Come on.
It's fucking Leprechaun, dude.
You've had 60 episodes. You have had 60 episodes to realize that Leprechaun is essential. What was the point? What was the point of this?
What was the point of the show? This whole time, all of it, ever since episode 40, has been a farce. Just trying to get me to come around on Leprechaun. They failed. Oh God,
we blew it.
41.
Well, speaking of blowing it, I think we're probably going to have a little bit of a pause here, boys.
If you haven't heard the
because-
screaming baby in the background.
Oh, I'm a great editor. Of course they haven't heard it, Bobby. Come on. Let's go.
Oh boy.
Where
We're
can we find you guys as we split this 100 episode into 100A and 100B?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
You can find me at a seal punter just about anywhere. I got a tattoo. That's all I have to update for now.
yeah.
Go to my Instagram. You can see it.
Absolutely. So yeah, this is our longest mega episode ever. Our megaist mega episode. And you can find me at Bolters and Bourbon on Twitter, Instagram, and Mastodon, and at Corbangering on Twitter. What have I been up to? Not a whole lot. I'm just playing a lot of Diablo. That is honestly it. At Bolters and Bourbon.
You can find me at twitch.tv/theredweenie. All of my relevant socials are there. I have recently started doing a hardcore run on Diablo as well as playing Raid Night with Destiny. On top of that, all of my relevant socials are there. And you will see me posting regularly, as I have promised my friends, at least on Instagram. So you will see a post of me, undoubtedly, with me and my wife at Wrigley Field for Fallout Boy, Alkaline Trio, and other bands who I don't care about as much. I think the Academy is playing, who I like, and then
They're still together.
and then some TikTok band who I don't give a shit about. I can't remember if it's Bringing the Horizon or the Academy is. Both bands who I like a lot. It's one of the two. We're going for our 1-year wedding anniversary. And it's gonna be a fun time. Other than that, I'm gonna do hobby shit maybe, but mostly I'm going to be posting the stuff that I normally post: pictures of my dog, pictures of me post workout, and pictures of me and my wife out eating food. So twitch.tv/theredweenie or Instagram.com/ I think it's Bobby Dunlap 16.
I love that.
What a name.
I
I also have seen Fall Out Boy in Wrigley.
I've seen Fall Out Boy, but not in
It's a
Wrigley.
fun-
So no,
Yeah, Soldier Field.
right.
I was there.
yeah,
It
great
is
time.
Bobby Dunlap 16, by the way.
hilarious.
Oh my god.
You can find the podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Essential Scares. We post occasionally when the moment strikes us, and we would love it if you give us a little follow and inspired us to post more than when it strikes us. When it strikes you, perhaps.
That's true.
In the bio to all of our socials is a link to our Discord, where we hang out all the time and talk about movies, music, games, and more. We're always taking suggestions on what to cover in the future, and in fact, the show will be changing format a little bit after episode 100B, so in a couple of weeks. So look forward to that. We will talk more about that after next week's episode, where we finish our 100 episode countdown that we simply ran out of time for. If you liked this episode, let us know. We used to do episodes of this length approximately much more frequently, and it's been a really long time, so let us know how you feel about the length and about the content. We would love feedback on that. And don't forget to rate us and subscribe and like everything like that on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you are listening or watching. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much for the last 99 episodes and for this 100th episode. And also, thank you to Alan and Bobby for being on the show with me this week. I have been your host, Corbin, and this has been Essential Scares.
Play half of 100th breakdown, baby.